great game. End-to-end stuff. Maybe if you're a fan of defending, it didn't quite float your boat, but overall, over the 120 minutes, it was a thoroughly entertaining tie. The first tie, by the way, that Pep Guardiola has lost, no matter what version of the Club World Cup he has been the manager of. It's the first time he's seen his side go home defeated. This is what he had to say after the game.
It's a pity because we have been in incredible journeys here together. We have been in so good place. The vibe was really good, and I can say not thank enough to the staff, background staff, and especially the players, how they training, how they play in every single game, giving everything. We will sit with the club, we will talk with the players as well. So, and at the end, the players are really good, and the season will be so long, so many things can happen. So that is the reality, that is the truth, and we have to see how, Rodri apparently was good, and after he complained about his a little bit, his situation. So we need time for many players come back.
Rob joins us, Frank with us as well. Rob, you were at the game, and I was completely wrong about it. Obviously, I thought Manchester City would walk into the next round. Al Hilal came, they fought, and they won. And overall, this is a great advert for this competition, wasn't it? Because it was a thoroughly entertaining match over the 120 minutes, with both teams clearly trying.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. In terms of what FIFA were after in terms of this competition, this is their perfect advert. It was two big sides from different federations. There was drama, there were goals, excitement, chances, end-to-end all night. Fans from both clubs inside the stadium, a relatively full stadium, so generating a good atmosphere. This is exactly what FIFA wanted, and I was exactly the same as you, Dan. I went to the stadium yesterday thinking that City would stroll through. Actually, that they would stroll through that game and probably also their quarter-final and make it to the semi-finals in New York. And I suppose the fact that they didn't just shows how competitive this tournament is getting, because these big sides like Manchester City are just not having it their own way against a team in Al Hilal, who have obviously got quality players. That's what their investment is all about. But in terms of their level, I think maybe they surprised a few people last night.
I suppose, Frank, for people who didn't see the game, they could say, oh yeah, clearly though, Al Hilal wanted to post the message to the world, that Saudi Arabian football isn't down in the dirt as some would expect it to be. But Manchester City did turn up. This was a proper team that Pep Guardiola put out, and a team that was trying.
Yeah, to say the truth, I didn't watch the game live because it was 3 a.m. in France, and when I woke up and I checked the result, I said, what happened? How that's possible? And I was expecting more a Paris Saint-Germain, Inter Miami result, kind of. And I watched the game, and to be fair, the first half, Manchester City should have scored more goals. Mm-hmm. But after the second half, that was a complete Al Hilal team. A completely different Al Hilal team came back, and they were spot on. I was absolutely surprised by their performances. But you have to check the names. Milinkovic-Savic, the guy, what does he do there? I'm sorry, he deserved to play in Europe, in big clubs in Europe, with all due respect to Saudi Arabia and some others. I saw Malcolm playing in Bordeaux. He was nowhere the player that I saw yesterday. So you have also to confront the weaknesses of Manchester City, especially on the second goal, how you can allow the player being so free when you have a corner kick for you, and that's your last defender is 70 yards away from his own goal. But defensively, we came back to Manchester City that we have seen last year. Yeah. Weak. That's insane.
Every time, how many times did we use this phrase last season? Every time the opposition go against Manchester City, there's a vulnerability about them, and that was exposed once again last night.
Yeah, and the question, I said it when we were doing the commentary on the goals. I'd love to know, well, I'm going to answer my own question. I was going to say I'd love to know who's in charge of the defensive side, but it should, at the end of the day, be Guardiola. Yep. You have these set-piece coaches, and I'm assuming that set-piece coach is in charge of all aspects of it, not just when the ball goes in the back of the net, but when it breaks down and then the opposition counter on you. And so, at the end of the day, whoever decided that Aït-Nouri should be the last man doesn't understand defensive football at all. This is a guy that we said before he stuck a Man City jersey on, is not a good defender. And you saw it in the highlight. He doesn't recognise when the danger's going to happen, and he doesn't understand where it's going to happen. And so when you're the last man, you've got no chance. So I think Norrie shouldn't be put in that position. In some ways, it's not his fault. And at the end of the day, it's Pep's fault, because he gets the final say on every single thing that happens with Manchester City. So he's going to have to take charge of the defensive side, because clearly the set-piece coach doesn't know what he's doing.
But, Robert, it seemed like a little bit Barcelona-esque in that high line that Manchester City were trying to play last night.
A little bit, and we couldn't really understand in the press box why they continued with it, because they looked vulnerable for the first 10 minutes of that second half. Al Hilal scored twice, and Pep Guardiola didn't really seem to want to change it. He made a couple of substitutions, but the back four were pushed really, really high up the field, and they just didn't deal with those transition situations well enough. Al Hilal were making a couple of passes and were through. Ruben Diaz at centre-half is a fantastic defender, but the one thing he lacks is pace. And it was almost like Al Hilal were targeting him at one point, just sending these straight balls straight through City's defence for their forwards and wingers to run onto. And actually, I know that Al Hilal needed extra time to win the game. They were really, really unlucky not to win it in normal time. They had the chances in the second half to finish that in 90 minutes, and City really were hanging on. The first half, City should have scored more goals. They probably should have gone in at half-time 2 or 3 goals up. But after half-time, the game completely flipped on its head. Simone Inzaghi clearly recognised that there was something about City that they could get at. They made their chances count, and they were, for the second half of the game and for extra time, they were by far the better team, and that will be a huge worry for Man City. And actually, we spoke to Bernardo Silva after the game, and he said the first thing out of his mouth was that the teams we lose against all play like this. And to me, that's quite worrying, because that means that that's a pattern. And if it's a pattern, then surely you need to be able to do something about it to stop it, because that's what great teams, top teams do.
Let's hear more, actually, from Bernardo Silva. This is what he had to say, including that comment that Rob alluded to, the fact that obviously we've seen this before with Manchester City this season. No one wanted to lose. No one wanted more vacations. We're very used to not having holidays, unfortunately, because the schedule is crazy. But when we're in a competition, we take it very seriously, and we had a lot of ambition for this Club World Cup, and we wanted to win it. I suppose the question I'm going to ask you, Stevie, which is an impossible one to answer, is does he mean that?
I think he does. I think he's part of the City setup that is used to winning and used to competing it till the very last game. So he absolutely 100% wants to win it. I think the one thing he's not understanding, though, is that he's stepping on the field with the rest of his teammates, and nothing has changed in terms of the problems they have defensively.
Okay.
And that really is the crux for me. I don't think we should underplay that this game, by the way, just to stick up for you, should have been done at half-time. There's no way. City should have been at least 3 up at half-time. The goalkeeper 100% stood on his head. Now, from the second hand on, you can't argue, we're good. But the fact is, it should have been done. But all the Premier League sides will be watching this, and they will see that absolutely nothing has changed defensively. But they signed 2 young centre-backs, and none of them clearly are good enough yet to play.
Yeah.
That means they've still got the same players: Stones, Akanji, Ake, Diaz. You've got Gvardiol back in there. You've still got 2 full-backs that can't defend. So guess what? We shouldn't expect things to change in terms of defence.
So Frank, we don't just dismiss this result. Obviously, they brought in players, the likes of Ryan. As you look at Shirky, you kind of think, well, where is he going to fit in overall at the start of the season? We've mentioned, of course, Aït-Nouri as well. But when it comes to that defensive setup, very familiar faces and very familiar problems.
Yeah, but the thing is, you don't understand it, because as Steve just did, if you have to mention the players that you have. Everybody would love to have Ruben Diaz, Akanji, Gvardiol, Ake in their teams. And you don't understand what is going wrong. And remember, Diaz, when he came the first years, he won the Premier League every time. He was one of the best defenders in the world. There is something not matching in the way they think the defensive aspect of the game. And I think it's where Guardiola have to improve his game, is how to make those players who are very good players good defensively. It's not only the names, it's how you make it work.